Hello, I'm Pastor Jeremy Combs, and we're going to pause for a proverb. Let's go. Proverbs chapter 3 and verse 30. Strive not with a man without cause, if you have done thee no harm. Solomon himself said in the book of Ecclesiastes 3 and verse 1, in everything there is a season, and later on down in verse 8, there's a time for war, and there's a time for peace. There are times in life when we do indeed need to fight. We must fight for what is right. In Christianity, there seems to be polar opposite views as to what we ought to do when it comes to striving for the truth. There are some like ostriches who bury their head in the sand, and yet there's others like rabid wolves, snipping and biting at anything and everything. Well, how can we find a true and proper balance? Well, the key is what this book is talking about: wisdom. Wisdom helps us to control our spirit at all times. When we should not fight because the cause is not right, the wisdom of God gives us restraint. When the cause is right, we fight with the right manner and the right means. This verse establishes a Christian's right to protect themselves from harm. Not in the sense of going and stirring up trouble and then getting out of it, but in the sense of any unprovoked attack. And so today, as we look in the book of Proverbs, we're reminded to choose our battles wisely. Verse 31, envy not thou the oppressor, and choose none of his ways. Who do you want to be like when you grow up? Do you remember being asked that question as a child? Probably your answers varied from movie stars to athletes to even historical figures. It's kind of in our nature to want to be like somebody else. This can be both good and bad. Here we are warned about envying the oppressor. This is the first time in the book of Proverbs, and really only the second time in the Old Testament that the word envy is found. Envy is when we have a zeal or great desire for what someone else possesses. The oppressor then in Hebrew means a man of might. Another way of calling or describing this man or calling him would be that he is a violent man. This person will do whatever he needs to get whatever he wants, even if he has to hurt somebody. Wisdom tells us that we ought to be content with who we are, and if you must envy somebody, wisdom would then teach us to envy Christ because he is meek and mild. And so as we look at this proverb, let's be careful not to envy the oppressor, and in fact, don't even choose any of his ways. One more, and that would be verse 32. For the froward is an abomination to the Lord, but his secret is with the righteous. Have you ever seen or smelled something that made you gag, that made you want to throw up? I can remember working the trash truck in college, and especially at the end when everybody was throwing away everything, and they'd open those chutes and the stench that would pour down would almost make you gag. This is the idea here as we get to this word abomination for the first time in the book of Proverbs. It means to make sick. Now, it's going to be found over 19 times in the book. So as we see it for the first time, what makes God sick? Those that are froward. Froward means, again, to turn aside or to pervert, to bend. When the truth of God is given to us, we can either receive it or we can reject it. When we reject it and then seek to turn others from the way, this God causes God to turn away from us. His secret is with the righteous. Probably every parent here can remember cleaning up your child's vomit. Now, you love the kid and you're there to help him, but that repugnant smell caused you to turn your head or your nose, and you didn't want to be close to him for a little bit. Well, this verse says that that's what happens when we are froward, that we separate ourselves from God. He wants to share with you and be close to you, and he will be if you will be righteous. That is to say, if we will be rightly based on the truth of God's word. So today, you can turn toward God or cause God to turn away from you. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.